noisy around my area today, but I'm pretty sure the headphones are going to block it out, but I guess we'll all find out together. As you can probably tell from the title of this video, I'm doing something a little bit different. I have just sort of lost the passion for every week doing a styling video, so I wanted to break it up a little bit. I still love styling, but it was getting a bit monotonous, and I'll go back to that again probably next week. But today I want to re-spark my passion by combining it with another passion, which is my cultural heritage of Malta. Now, in the 50s, Australia opened its doors to Maltese immigrants after World War II because they got pretty heavily bombed there and were occupied by England, so a lot of people wanted to leave for a more comfortable life and for a future with more opportunities. So in 1951, my nana packed up my dad and my uncle, got on a boat, spent a few months coming over here, and now here I am. So I want to do a video on Maltese fashion, talking about both the history of it and where it's come to in modern times. Now, when you look up traditional dress of Malta, the first thing you're going to come across is the faldetta or the ornella. It's believed that this had a Sicilian origin perhaps, as a lot of Sicilian widows were exiled to Malta. And there's also influences of Sicily in other things like our food, because we were colonised by Sicilian, first Muslims, then Christians, which also makes sense why the Maltese language is sort of a mix of a few different languages. So according to local legend, the faldetta, or ornella, was first introduced in the 13th century, so the 1200s. It's a long black shawl, pretty much goes from head to toe basically, that women would hold around themselves like this. And it had a firm upper part that was filled with board, cane or whalebone to make it stand up stiff. I actually did a video of upcycling jeans where I made a bonnet that was sort of inspired by faldetta. There's some talk amongst local legend talking about how maybe it became really popular when veiling requirements came in the Catholic Church. As you can tell from right now and most of my other videos, I still enjoy veiling, especially with black veils and garments. A lot of people think I'm Christian just because of the beliefs, but it's largely a cultural thing for me. I would be spiritual either way, but this makes me feel connected to my culture. It's what I was raised with. It's really an emotional connection for me. So some people say that's when it got so popular, but irregardless, pretty much all women would wear them. But we know that at least the practical reasons of it were, when it was hot, a cool breeze would get trapped under the stiff part and it would sort of keep them cool. And when it's cold, the women could pull it in tighter and stop a cold breeze from coming through, or just keep out the cold in general. They're mostly traditionally black, but in the south there were some navy blue ones. But as time went on, bright colours were worn by noble women. So the ornella was worn on a regular basis by women up until World War II, which is not that long ago if you really think about it, for traditional dress to keep being worn. And by the 1970s it was pretty much never seen. I guess it's just a bit impractical to be holding something like this all the time. And in modern days it doesn't make too much sense, because imagine getting on a bus with something that has a big bit of board in there. Now, not all areas of Malta did people dress the same, and of course people weren't just out being social all the time, so there were other types of dress. If you've ever watched traditional Maltese folk dances, you can see folk costumes that reflect what peasants and rural workers and farmers would have worn in the past. These are often also attributed to Gozo, which is one of the main islands that make up Malta, where there was a lot of farming and stuff there. So they wore headdresses as well, but they're a lot more practical, often pinned to their head or tied around. They often extended down to about the knee. They could be pretty long, sometimes a bit shorter. Then they had a long full skirt that was tied at the side with ribbons, I assume to allow as much movement as possible while working. and then an apron over the top for practical reasons to sort of wipe your hands on, stuff like that. I'll put a little video of traditional folk dances here so you can sort of see the movement of those garments, as well as a lot of the time they'll dance around with baskets on their head, which reflects what these peasant women were probably doing while working. One of the things that Malta is most well known for internationally, both for exports and artistry, is probably their lace making. Called bizzila in Malta. It was mastered centuries ago and is still relatively popular today. So if you read up about this, it will talk about how they use bobbins to do this. And Maltese lace making uses small wooden sticks that have threads off the end of them, and they're quickly moved over and under each other, and using that and pins that are holding the fabric in place up higher on a board, incredibly intricate patterns are made. A lot of Maltese lace incorporates a design of the Maltese cross into it to distinguish where it comes from compared to lace from other parts of the region, such as Italy. For the most part, it was traditionally used for fans, table coverings, and to decorate altars in church. In some ways not too different from Greek use of doilies and things. But you can also find head coverings and shawls made out of it from time to time. Because it is so intricate, it's not very often, if ever, that you'll see entire garments made out of it, because that would just take so long. Although now modern machinery can make similar lace and is often used to do it, the art is still pretty popular in Malta, and the University of Malta even offers a degree in traditional lace making, bizzila. Modern day-to-day fashion in Malta is honestly not too different from the rest of Europe. A lot of people travel in between Malta and other European countries. They have the internet. People want to be comfortable and practical. So when you go there, people may not look that different to similar countries. However, when you look at modern day designers, you can tell that Malta really is a place where you're allowed freedom and variety in your clothing. People feel free to use different patterns, different textures, even slightly different cuts of things. While the fashion scene might not be as big and as thriving as in other European countries, especially London, Paris, places like that, one person that has helped advance the fashion industry in Malta a lot is Adrian J. Mitzi. Mitzi, I'm pretty sure, M-I-Z-Z-I. So he's the founder and the producer of the Maltese Fashion Awards. It's been running for 26 years now, it began in 1998, and also the founder and director of Malta Fashion Week. He began by running an event management company called Unique Promotions, which he used to launch these events, and they've been growing every year since and have become a staple part of Malta's both tourism and creative industries. Being sponsored by Mercedes-Benz each year has allowed Malta Fashion Week to steadily grow and gain international attention. In fact, it's the only Maltese fashion event that regularly gains international press. So Malta Fashion Week, the setup is not too different from other fashion weeks. It's a really good opportunity for local and even some international designers to put on runways, showcase their collections, and get a new audience. Then at the end of this week, they have the Malta Fashion Awards, which is a large, almost party, which brings in about 5,000 attendees a year, which is very large even for other European countries. This year, I believe most of the designers are Maltese, but there is one from Lebanon and one from Serbia, so they're around the similar region, and it's just a really good opportunity for networking, getting to know people outside of the area. So I'm going to share with you 3 designers that are in this year's Malta Fashion Week that I am really inspired by. You might want to go check them out. The first one is Black Crypt, run by a young man that was born and raised in Malta. He says his designs are inspired by rock and roll of the 70s and 80s. This is evident in the use of a lot of black, a lot of texture, and a lot of interesting prints like animal prints. When I see designs like this, it reminds me of the band Kiss, who was obviously active around the times that they say they're inspired by. Like when I look at this outfit and this album, I could definitely see them wearing Black Crypt in this day and age. Another, I'm not 100% sure if it's pronounced Baja or Baja. It's honestly really hard to find translations of Maltese words or even people to teach me Maltese. I've been trying to learn, but it's not on Duolingo. I can't find any classes around. So some things I'm still sort of guessing the pronunciation. This is a luxury beach and resort wear brand, and this is really interesting to me because it's run by 2 siblings who are actually architects who have a really big talent and interest in design and fashion. Their architecture really shows in the clothing, even just by looking at it, but when you read the descriptions of these clothing, you can see even more how they're really melding their 2 interests together here. I think it's really innovative. I think it's really interesting. I've seen some collections from some brands around that incorporate architecture into the designs, but nothing quite as consistent as this, and it just really inspires me. Another brand that has a really heavy Mediterranean influence is Charles and Ron. The backstory is that Charles was born in Malta. He's a self-taught couture seamstress who comes from a long line of seamstress. He met Ron in Amsterdam. Ron came over with him to visit Malta, fell in love, and they've loved designing clothes based on the history and culture of Malta since then. Together, they have created one of, if not the most popular and successful Maltese fashion brands through their love of the country and its history and culture. I think it's really beautiful to have so much national pride and express it in such an artistic way. You can see here they boast over 30,000 Instagram followers, whereas a lot of the other designers in Malta Fashion Week just have a few thousand. Of course, Malta is only a small country with about 500,000 people residing there, so it's not going to get sort of the large numbers that places like America get. But still, compared to those other designers, it seems like they're doing really, really well. Here you can see in a recent collection they have a few garments that they say are based off the history of glass blowing, which Malta is also well known for. And here they have another line that references beautiful limestone, beautiful water, and the sunset seen around Malta in imagery like this. As a quite popular brand, they also have a lot of monogrammed pieces, which I think is really cool as well. I think as they become more popular and branch out more, it will be really cool for people to see that monogram and think of Malta, because not many people know that much about Malta. I hope you loved learning about Maltese fashion, because I absolutely loved learning more about it myself and sharing it with you. I think that I will probably do some more videos around history of fashion in certain places and sort of maybe intertwine it with my activism or just other passions that I have. And I'd also like to do other things specific to Malta, like maybe making my own clothes based off Maltese fashion or doing styling based off them. Ideally, I would love to go vlog in Malta and do all this, or even work in Malta Fashion Week myself. We'll see what happens. You never know what the future holds. But for now, it's been beautiful learning more about my culture and sharing